All right, you guys, let's get down to the nitty gritty. I bought a house when I was 25 as a single mom. If I can do it, you can too. And that's what this video is all about, how to buy a house. Let's go. Quick disclaimer, I am not a finance expert. This is just all of the steps that I took in order for me to buy a house. If you're looking for real deal Holyfield knowledge as far as laws and regulations, contact a lender or banker today. All right, you guys, the very first step that I took in order for me to figure out if I was ready to buy a house was I checked my finances. Questions that you want to ask yourself when you're even thinking about buying a house is, am I even ready to buy a house? Do I have a grip on my finances? Do I have savings? Am I ready to fork out the money to pay for my own repairs when it comes to my home? Do I have a paycheck budget? Do I know the ins and outs of my money? If you have no idea how to get a grip on your finances, I'm going to go ahead and link a video up here somewhere to let you know how I do my payday routine. Once you have a grip on your finances, the next thing that you want to do is check your credit score. Having a higher credit score means you'll get a better rate on your loan. If you have a great credit score, you then want to go ahead and check out your debt to income ratio. A debt to income ratio is simply how much money you earn versus how much money you spend. Depending on your loan and the banker that you decide to go with, they can ask different amounts of debt to income ratios. But you can find out your debt to income ratio simply by doing a little bit of math. First, you want to add up all of your total monthly debts. I'm talking about credit cards, car payments. I believe child support is also a debt. You want to take all of that, add it up, find that number, and then you want to divide it by all of your gross income. Gross income is simply the income that you receive before taxes are taken out. So take your debt, divide it by your income, and then boom, there's your debt to income ratio. Most lenders want you to have less than 40% when it comes to your debt to income ratio. Now, like I said before, it really just depends on your lender, but what I would suggest is to have your debt to income ratio as low as possible. Here's my story, you guys. The very first time that I decided I wanted to buy a house, I was actually 24 years old, but I did not have a grip on my finances. I did not have a paycheck routine. I did not have a budget. I had crazy amounts of debt. A few of my credit cards were even in delinquency. So I sat down with the real estate agency, and her being the nicest person that she was, she literally was like, come on, sweetheart, when you get your finances together, go ahead and come back. But I took her advice. I got my stuff together simply by just looking up things on YouTube for free. The fact that you're watching this video is amazing. But once I got a grip on my finances, you know darn sure I came back. But I did not come back to the same lady because low key, I was a little embarrassed. After you get a grip on your finances, the next thing that you want to calculate is how much house you can actually afford. Now, there's a whole bunch of different type of budgeting rules and money rules out there, but you want to figure out which one's best for you. Once you have figured out your money rules, you want to go ahead and take whatever you allocated to your living expenses and make sure that it matches your mortgage. So what I did to calculate how much house I could actually afford was I basically took my current living expenses, the total of my housing expenses, and I just added an additional $300 to that. And then every time I went out to look at houses, I literally did some math. Like I took out my phone, I asked the real estate agent, hey, how much money do you think this will actually cost me? Usually real estate agents have some sort of mortgage payment estimator on their phone, and they can plug in the numbers really quick and try and give you a rough estimate of what your mortgage payment will be. Find out what your mortgage insurance could possibly be, add that into that. Find out the HOA fees, add that into that. Find out whatever repairs that you might possibly have, add that into that. Utilities, ask how much the average utilities are in this neighborhood, add that into that. Like, put your real estate agent to work respectfully. You don't want to kill them. You don't want to make this real estate agent regret working with you. But ask some questions. Hey, have you sold a house in this property? Do you know roughly how much the insurance is? Do you know roughly how much, the energy bill will go up? Ask some questions. They're there to help you. Calculate all of those numbers up and then make sure that they fit into your budget for your housing expenses. Now, obviously you can ask all the questions to your real estate agent, but at the end of the day, only you know what's best for you. So do your own research. Call your renter's insurance and be like, hey, roughly, this is the house I'm looking at. How much do you think homeowner's insurance would cost? Maybe talk to your neighbors and be like, hey, how much is your energy bill roughly? I know that sounds weird, but I'm thinking about moving in. I did all of this. I had no shame because I was a single mom and my only income was me. I didn't have child support. I didn't have husband. I didn't have any of that. I fronted my entire home expenses, so I didn't care to ask questions. But you can also look up a lot of these things online. You have Google and you have knowledge on your fingers, in your hand. Use it. I'm over here pointing at a hand that's empty. Let me grab my phone. You have an abundance of answers in your hand. Use this little gadget to get the answers that you need. Now, going back to my story, when I first bought my house, I found the home of my dreams in the cutest little neighborhood. I didn't want to pool in my actual house, but I knew I wanted to live in a community with a gated pool. I knew that I wanted pathways to be able to run. I knew I wanted the scenery to be beautiful. I knew there was certain things that I wanted in my, not necessarily just in my home, but also in my neighborhood. And I found the house of my dreams. But when I put the offer in, I realized that somebody else put an offer in, and I pretty much went into a bidding war with this person because I had to have the house. During the bidding war process though, my real estate agent and my lender both kept telling me, hey, you know you can bring up the price. You know you can keep going up higher. You know if you need to, you can use the max amount of your loan, but it's up to you. And they literally just kept telling me like, go up in price, go up in price. But I knew if I kept going up in price, I was literally going to be struggling, living paycheck to paycheck for a house of my dreams. Was it really worth it? No. So after a few tries, I pretty much threw in the towel and said, this house isn't for me. I can't afford it. Let's see what else there is. But don't worry. At the end of this video, I have a beautiful testimony on my dream home and how I actually ended up getting it. After you have figured out how much house you can afford, you want to go ahead and move on to step 3, which is calculating the actual costs to purchase the home. It's not that simple. A lot of the times people are like, just buy a house, get your loan, call it a day. But there's closing costs. There's closing costs and down payments associated with the loan that you have to budget for. Closing costs, what are they? Closing costs are pretty much all of the fees associated with the actually being approved for your loan. Closing costs include appraisal fees, inspection fees, paying your lender, home inspection, homeowner's insurance, things like that. Usually closing costs are anywhere from 3 to 6%. The easiest and simplest way to calculate how much your potential closing costs could be for this loan is to take your pre-approved amount and divide it by 3 to 6%. I would advise you to calculate more on the 6% side because it's better to have more than what you actually need. You know how the saying goes, it's better to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Next, we have the down payment. The down payment really just depends on the type of loan that you get. Sometimes it could be 0%, sometimes it can be up to 20% if you get a conventional loan. The 0% is like VA. I think some FHAs might have that, but it's pretty much anywhere from 0 to 20% of your total loan. And it's pretty much just helping the lender say, hey, I will give you this loan if you put some of your money down. Show me that you're good for the loan. Now, like I said before, it's best to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Aim for that 20% unless if you've already talked to your lender and your lender tells you how much your actual fees will be for the down payment. Now, step 3 and step 4 pretty much work unison, like close to each other. But step 4 is pretty much just calling a lender and actually getting pre-approved for a loan. This is the time when you ask all of the questions that you can ask. Hey, how much is my down payment going to cost? Roughly, how much are closing costs? What is an earnest deposit? What is a title? Ask all of the questions that you can ask. It's better to ask than to not know. Knowledge is power. Remember that knowledge is power. Ask away. There's no such thing as a dumb question. And if your lender makes you feel dumb, maybe that's not the lender for you. Now, what is a pre-approval letter? Pre-approval letters are pretty much saying, hey, this person is ready to buy a house. They're good to go. They're good for it. Let's go ahead and help them buy a house. It's that simple. The cool thing about pre-approval letters is when you actually start shopping for houses, it tells the people that are selling their home that, hey, this person is good for the money. They're a good potential buyer for your home. Oftentimes people go out and it's like window shopping for houses. They don't have no pre-approval letters. But if you have a pre-approval letter, that kind of makes you a little bit more competitive than the average Joe. After you get your pre-approval letter, that's when you want to start finding the right agent for you. Okay, I have actually bought 2 homes. My very first home that I ever bought, I sold that guy, and then I got the actual home of my dreams later to come. But when I was first buying my very first home, I loved my real estate agent because she babied the heck out of me. Every question that I had, every step, everything that you can think of, she literally held my hand right through the process. Repairs, inspection, appraisal, title, she explained everything to me and she was amazing. So she was worth every penny to me. The second time I went around to sell that house and buy a new house though, I loved my real estate agent, but I almost had so much knowledge already from reading up on how to sell a house and buy a house that I almost wish I had the confidence to just do it by myself, to just sell and buy a new house on my own. Now, I don't recommend this if this is your first time buying a house. Have that person represent you and walk you and coddle you and baby you through the entire process. You'll need that, especially if you don't have anybody in your family or in your friends that can help you through the process. I say all of this though just to tell you that you don't need a real estate agent, so shop around for one. The great thing about it is if you're buying a house, you don't front any money to pay your real estate agent. The person selling their house actually pays your real estate agent. So use them because they're pretty much free to you anyways. After you have found that perfect fit between you and a real estate agent, now comes the fun part. We're gonna shop for homes. Here's the thing, you guys, shopping for your first home or shopping for a home in general can be very overwhelming, time consuming, exciting. It can give you a little bit of anxiety, but if you do the following things, it'll help you. I want you to go ahead and take a piece of paper and write down your yeses, the things that you absolutely must have in your new home, the maybes, whether you can budge on it, like, hey, I want a big kitchen, but do I really cook that much? I don't absolutely need it, and your absolute no's. So before I went home shopping, I actually looked around at the neighborhood. I looked for how far the grocery stores are. I looked for the school district. I looked for any sex offenders, the crime, things like that. And then I think my number one thing that I actually wanted cosmetically in the house was obviously make sure everything worked, that I didn't need any crazy repairs, and I wanted an open space concept. So like the living room, the kitchen, they're all in one, there's no walls, things like that. Now, it is your first time buying a home, so you don't want to go crazy and buy this extravagant house, because as your life grows, as you progress through life, your wants and needs will change. So I can't remember who exactly said it. It was either Dave Ramsey or the Bigger Pockets. If you have not heard of Bigger Pockets, go ahead and check them out. They have podcasts, they have books, but they talk about real estate investing, buying your first home, etc., etc. But one of those two companies actually talks about how you should probably buy the ugliest home in the nicest neighborhood, and that's what I did. You don't want to have it switched around. You don't want to have the nicest house in the ugliest neighborhood, because at the end of the day, when people go house shopping, they do look at the neighborhood as well, and they're not going to fork out a bunch of money for the most beautiful house in an ugly neighborhood. But vice versa, they will fork out money if it's a nice neighborhood, and if later on when you want to sell, you do a little bit of cosmetic changes, you'll get the most bang for your buck. Back to me and my home buying experience. My very first home was actually the ugliest home I ever thought that I would purchase. Oh my God, it was so foul. It was smelly, it was grungy, and it was quite frankly just plain old ugly. The person that owned it was actually an 80-year-old disabled chain smoker. So he couldn't clean properly. He smoked inside of the house. He couldn't get around to fixing repairs and stuff. So the house was in bad shape. But the bones were amazing. I got lucky, God is good, and my dad and my brothers have always done home repairs. They've always helped people with their home repairs. I knew I had YouTube, and I had an amazing brother that helped me through the process. So when I bought my house, I knew it was ugly, but within a week, I made that disgusting house a beautiful home with the help from my brother. I'm talking about we stripped down the popcorn ceilings, we painted the house, the entire thing. We removed the grungy, disgusting carpets and replaced it with wood vinyl floors. So not the real wood floors, but like vinyl floors. It was beautiful. I loved it, and it was just homey to me. But when I turned around and sold that house, I made so much bang for my buck because I bought a nice, okay, decent, grungy house in a really good neighborhood. All right, we're moving on to step number 7. After you have finally found the home that you think you want to buy, we're gonna go ahead and submit an offer. Basically put, an offer is pretty much just a handwritten bid on a house. It's kind of like a handshake saying, hey, I'll buy this house for this much money, but it's written down on a contract. Your real estate will keep this simple and do all of the work for you, but you do want to know what goes into a contract. The first thing that goes into the offer is the price that you're willing to pay for the home. Then you want to go ahead and add the earnest deposit amount that you're submitting. An earnest deposit is pretty much just a very small amount of money, anywhere, well, I shouldn't say small, but compared to a loan amount, it is very small. It's anywhere from $1,000 to like $5,000, saying that, hey, I'm good for it, I'm serious, I want this house, let's go. You submit that in the offer along with any items that you might want to keep or you want them to fix. Now, every once in a while, if you do have a veteran real estate agent or maybe just like an amazing realtor, they'll throw in a letter explaining who you are. These letters are meant to pull at the heartstrings of people selling their home. Sometimes they work, but sometimes they don't. Take me, for example. The first time I wanted to buy a house, remember that house that I told you, the dream house that I really wanted? My realtor actually suggested, hey, let's go ahead and submit a letter with your offer, see if it helps them sell you the house. So she submitted a letter saying I was a single mom, I was a first-time home buyer, and I was also a veteran. They did not care about any of these things. And low-key, I was like, that's cringe. Why are we doing that? But when I sold my house, I had about 4 bids and then a person that submitted a letter with their offer. Those 4 original bids were way above asking price. I was gonna make a decent amount of money on my house, and then I had that one person that pulled at my heartstrings. It turns out that the person that wanted to buy my house was also a single mom, and so I actually took a cut on what I could potentially sell the house for, and I sold it to the single mom. So those letters, they can work, but sometimes they just don't. It really just depends on the circumstances that the seller is in and the emotional state of the seller. Some people are very emotional. For me, I loved the fact that I was going to sell to a single mom and make it her first home. I loved that for her. I even left some of my daughter's stuff in my daughter's room that she can have for her daughter. It was just it was cool. It was amazing. So I'm glad that I used that. But like I said before, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. It really just depends on the seller that you submit the offer and letter to. Now, if you pulled at the right heartstrings and you got your offer accepted, we move on to step 8, which is your inspection and your appraisal of the house. An inspection is pretty much when a professional comes in and inspects the house. An appraisal is when a professional comes out and says, hey, I vetted your house and this is how much I think this house can sell for. Those 2 things can actually help you out when it's time to buy the house. An inspection will list all of the flaws and repairs that need to happen to the house, which in turn can either give you credits, which means you get some sort of money off of the amount of the loan because the seller is saying, hey, I don't want to fork out the money to fix these, but you can. I'll just take a little bit of money off of the loan. Or you can have the actual seller fix the repair so you don't have to worry about it. Or you can always meet in the middle. They fix some and give you credits for the rest. Now, an appraisal is what makes or breaks your loan depending on the type of loan you have and how much money you have in your savings and reserves. Let's say you put in an offer at $100,000. You want to buy this house for $100,000. If the appraisal value though comes back at like $99,000, then the seller usually has to come down because most loan officers, most lenders will not give you a loan amount that is higher than what the house is appraised for. But here's the caveat. If the seller still wants to sell the house for $100,000, you're going to have to fork out that $1,000 because the lender is not going to give it to you. These 2 things are really good negotiating tools because they can bring down the loan amount, bring down you getting home repairs, and most of the time they'll help you out depending on how the market is during that season of you buying a house. All right, so you did all of your negotiating, you figured things out, you brought down the price a little bit because the sellers are gonna go ahead and fix a couple of those repairs. Now it's time for your final walkthrough. Your final walkthrough is when you walk through the entire house, make sure that the repairs were done, make sure that there's nothing new that can pop up that you have to fix later on, make sure that everything works. If you ask for those couches, make sure that those couches are still in good condition and actually left on the property. Make sure that the sellers moved out, all of that good stuff. You just want to make sure that you're going into a home that's beautiful, that's clean, that's fixed, that's just good for you to make it a nice and cozy, warm home. Now, during steps 7 through 9, 7 being submitting an offer, 8 your inspection and appraisal, and 9 doing your final walkthrough. During this entire time, your lender is doing everything that they can to actually get you approved for your loan. So I want to remind you at this time that you don't want to do anything to mess up that process. You don't want to rack up your credit card bills. You pretty much just want to put your finances at a pause and be still with everything. You don't want to buy a new car. You don't want to buy a new fridge on credit. You don't want to do anything. You don't want to empty out your savings accounts. Just keep everything on hold until you officially get the keys to your house, because these things can make or break your loan. If you go out and buy a car while you're in the process of buying a home, that literally can bring up your debt to income ratio, declining your loan. Finally, after about 20 to 30 days, sometimes even 60, it really just depends, of chaos, you have hit the final stretch and you're getting ready to sign all of your documents and receive your keys. So we're on step 10, closing on your home. During the closing of your home, you're signing all of the documents you could ever think of. You're signing the transfer of title, which is saying, hey, this person was the homeowner, now this person is the homeowner. You're signing for taxes, you're signing for escrow, you're signing for homeowners insurance, you're signing for HOA regulations and rules. You're signing for everything that you can think of associated to the home. At this time, you want to make sure that you ask questions if you're not sure what you're signing. Ask questions. Like I said, if the lender makes you feel dumb for asking a question, they're not the lender for you. And sometimes they'll even be as dumb as to ask whether your dad is buying you your home. Back to my story in buying the home. When I sat down with the person helping me close on my house, they literally asked me, is your dad helping you buy the home? Are you buying it with anybody else? Do you have a boyfriend? Do you have anybody helping you on the loan? And because I worked so hard to save my money, get my credit fixed, get a grip on my finances, and actually have the capability of buying my first home, I was so offended that this guy even asked me that. I was like, the audacity. I worked so hard to buy my home. Don't be like me, guys. They're gonna ask you those questions. Yeah, get offended, but don't be rude. Whatever. You worked hard. It's their job to ask you if you have another person on the loan. Just go with the flow and be excited. Be excited to be a homeowner. Hours to a week after you sign all of your documents, you finally get to call yourself a homeowner. You have a little set of silver trinkets that your real estate agent hands to you and says, here you go, congratulations. Take your keys, open up your new home, and congratulate yourself because you did it. Now, on to the moment you've all been waiting for, my little beautiful home testimony. As I said before, the very first time that I tried to buy my house, I just didn't end up getting my dream home, but it worked out for the best for me. Now, if you watched my videos before, I do believe in God, and God did some works in me buying a house. He showed up and showed out. So fast forward, we're in 2022 and I'm just not filling my house anymore. I knew the market was up. I knew I could make a decent amount of money on my house. And so I was like, you know what? I'm ready to sell my house. I never thought that I would be so stressed out to find a new home, but I was. I kept looking for houses, kept getting outbid. I kept looking for houses. I just couldn't find the right home. Like crazy, I was searching for houses. My realtor was sending me houses from his little system that he uses. I forgot what it's called. If you know what it is, link it down below. And I got to an end where I was just like frustrated because I knew I had to be out of my house and I didn't want to move into an apartment. And like magic, Jesus showed up. I was driving and I had music playing at the time, and it was kind of just like, hey, turn down the music. And I don't know, I just turned down the music and I continued to drive, and it was just like a thought that I know was not from me. And I'm getting emotional thinking about it because God is so good. And the thought was, hey, check in the neighborhood of the house that you first wanted to buy. And so I did. I looked up the zip code and I found a few houses. And I was a little bit discouraged because I was like, man, I've been putting bids on all of these houses. I doubt that I will get the house that I want. And so I found the houses. I found 3 to be specific. I didn't even look at the houses. I sent them to my realtor and I was like, I do not want to lose these houses. Send this offer today, tonight. We don't have to look at it because obviously it's contingent on whether you need home repairs and things like that. I already knew what the houses looked like in that neighborhood. It's like, I don't want to lose these houses. Send the offer now. He was amazing. He sent the offers. The first one declined. I didn't offer enough. The second one, I got into a bidding war again, lost the house. The third one, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get aggressive. I'm going to ask above asking price. And I'm pretty much going to say, as long as there's nothing crazy going on with the house, it's going to be a smooth process. My offer got accepted. We went through the negotiating process. We went through the inspection and the appraisal. At the appraisal, everything was good, but I was nervous because I asked above asking price. And I was scared that the appraisal was not going to come in at the price that I wanted, but it did. God showed up, God showed out. Appraisal came through. I was good to go. They did all of the repairs that I asked for. Smooth process. I move into my house. I can't. It's unbelievable. I move into my house. I start moving in. I was training. I was doing late nights. So my mom actually helped me. Thank God for my mom. Love the heck out of her. She was watching my daughter and how having the movers like move me out. She was there for me, representing me. Thank God. And the person that was going to start moving in that bought my old house was moving in that day. And so as she was moving in, I was moving out. Finally got to spend my first night in my house. I go to walk my dogs. Where are you, Bean? He's over there in the corner if you can't see him. Behind the pillow. Say hi, Beans. Okay. Go to walk my dogs. And I'm like, you know what? This is the neighborhood that I want to live in before, whatever. I'm going to go and check it out. 5 years prior. Okay. I go straight down my street. I turn left. At the end of that street was the house that I was originally wanting to buy in 2017 that I couldn't afford, you guys. I couldn't afford it. There's beauty in trusting and waiting for God, because I looked at that house, my dream home, and 5 years later I got it for less than the amount that I was gonna pay for 5 years ago. And by less, I mean the payments per month were less. Even though the housing market inflated like crazy, I literally paid less per month than I was gonna pay 5 years ago when I wanted that house. And I love my house, and sometimes I get so frustrated because I'm like, I'm growing, my life is changing. I'm thinking, me and my husband are thinking about having a baby, but I know that my house was a gift from God, so I appreciate it. You know, and when I don't want to appreciate it, I'm like, how can I not appreciate it? God gave me my house. And so I tell you all of this stuff just to tell you I did it. And the Bible tells you, like, ask and you'll receive. One of my favorite verses, Matthew 7:7, ask and you'll receive, knock and the door will be opened. I asked for that dream house. I said, God, man, I really want it. And sometimes God tells you yes, sometimes he tells you no, sometimes he tells you maybe and not right now. When I first bought my disgusting house, the answer was not right now. 5 years later, I ended up buying the house that I want. And again, I bought it as a single mom because I just got married 2 months ago, and I bought my house a year and a half ago. God will show up and he'll show out if you allow him to. So like I said before, you guys, if you're not in the correct spot to buy a house, that's okay. If you listen to my story from step 1, I was not in the position to buy a house, but with hard work and changed money habits, you too can buy a house. You too can declare wisdom and great money habits on your life. Just ask for it, and knowledge is power. Soak up as much knowledge as you can. But that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed my story. I hope this helps you if you ever buy a house, and believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Thank you for being here. I'll see you soon. Bye.